Now, hello everyone. Earlier yesterday, I had posted a post to Reddit Laquistas, basically asking why did Yacht Varnish take so much longer to dry than the varnish that's meant for, not varnish, nail polish for your fingers. And basically, I'm going to read it now so that you guys can get a feel for what's going on, because I discovered there's some people who didn't even have as much of an idea of what's going on chemically as I did. So I'm going to read you two things first so that you get an idea of what I mean. And then I'll get into the review. Okay, so this is what I posted. Thought this would be a better place to ask than our science. How come nail polish for your fingers dries in 20 minutes, but yacht varnish takes 16 hours to dry completely? By user Coconut Head 777, which is me. So last week I bought some yacht varnish with the idea that I would make and use it to paint on my pottery pieces I make, and that I could rebuild the empty clear nail polishes as they went down. I live on an island where, you see, it can be very, very, very hard to get basic makeup items. Sometimes you end up making them. Anyway, so after I took the varnish home, sometimes I feel the same thing. Anyway, I noticed it said 5 hours touch dry and recoat dry in 16 hours. How come nail polish for your fingers dries in 20 minutes, but yacht varnish takes 16 hours to dry completely? And for the ones where I put a bit of acetone in the varnish, take even longer to dry. It's both acrylic paint. What's the difference? Now, the first commenter said, you see this line here? That means quote. Quote, it's both acrylic paint. I don't think so. They do have different ingredients. Regular nail polish doesn't contain acrylic polymer emulsion. I'm sure this plays a role in the difference of their drying properties. So far, so good. Then I replied, to be honest, I'm not even sure what you mean by acrylic polymer emulsion, but from what I've picked up, there are two types of nail polish. Enamel, which seems to have a higher chance of being peel-off nail polish, and acrylic. I see the word acrylic on the back of clean color, so I thought, okay, this is acrylic. You can paint pottery with... hold on. Wait, move that smudge? Okay, right. You can't paint pottery with... Start over, because the smudge maybe not see the tea. So I replied, to be honest, I'm not even sure what you mean by acrylic polymer emulsion, but from what I've picked up, there are two types of nail polish. Enamel, which seems to have a higher chance of being peel-off nail polish, and acrylic. I see the word acrylic on the back of clean color, so I thought, okay, this is acrylic. You can't paint pottery with enamel paint. The enamel will eat the clay if left there long enough. The paint I bought in the can is acrylic varnish. It even smells identical to nail polish. I'm just wondering, really, what is in regular nail polish why it dries all that much faster? Sorry, there's a bird in the window. Anyway, and now this is where that problematic comment comes in with a couple of erroneous thoughts in it. Just hang on. I'll read it to you because I wrote it out so I can have a quick reference when I'm pointing out different things. It says, and this is talking about acrylic and varnish. They're actually completely different things. Acrylic paint is acrylic paint, nail polish is nail polish, and yacht varnish is yacht varnish. They all have different ingredients and therefore different drying periods. Look at wall paint versus acrylic paint. you use for painting a canvas will dry a lot sooner than a wall when it comes to layers. Also, acrylic nail polish does not equal acrylic paint, but I'm fairly certain that there isn't a thing acrylic nail polish unless it's polish specifically for acrylic nails. The two types of nail polish are regular, which dries in air, and then gel polish, which is cured under a UV bulb. He's in a totally different Venn diagram here, but okay, let's beat it over so that you can catch everything. I'm going to point out that finger when it's being made. They're actually completely different things. Acrylic paint is acrylic paint, nail polish is nail polish, and yacht varnish is yacht varnish. They all have different ingredients and therefore different drying periods. Look at wall paint versus acrylic paint used for painting a canvas. Will dry a lot sooner than a wall when it comes to layers. Also, acrylic nail polish does not equal acrylic paint, but I'm fairly certain that there isn't a thing acrylic nail polish unless it's polish specifically for acrylic nails. The two types of polish are regular, which dries in air, and then gel polish, which is cured under a UV bulb. Now, here's what I'm going to start to do with this. They're actually completely different things. Acrylic paint is acrylic paint, nail polish is nail polish, and yacht varnish is yacht varnish. That's kind of like saying they're all different things. Pasta is pasta, spaghetti is spaghetti, Luigi is Luigi. Is that even a pasta? But they all have different ingredients, and so they're totally different, completely different. But no, the thing is that it's all in the same family. The chemistry of nail polish is actually pretty similar to the chemistry of acrylic paint, as you're going to see from a video I point out. It's like, for real fam, they're family. You will notice that acrylic nail polish especially and varnishes smell similar, and there's a reason for it. Pause. We're going into a video right now that's going to explain what acrylic paint is, how it has the similar ingredients to leave a film across your nails when it dries, just like acrylic paint leaves a film on your paper when it dries, when the water part of it dries out. So pause, we're going to a video right now.
Hi friends, welcome back. This is our very first tutorial video here. Once again, my name's Ashley. If you haven't seen my first video, I'll link to that at the end of this video. It was a speed paint, and in that video I said that I would make 2 videos a week, and every Tuesday would either be a blogging type post or it'd be a tutorial. So guess what? I've got our very first tutorial here for you. I hope you like it. Instead of diving right in and showing you methods for drawing or painting or whatever, I was really trying to think about what would be a good first tutorial video. And I decided that we should start from the very beginning. So this tutorial is going to be all about what is acrylic paint. Acrylic paint is simply pigment that's suspended in an acrylic polymer emulsion. Now before you go crazy, let's just get into the science of that a little bit so you know what pigment. Well, pigment is simply color. That's what it is. Simple as that. Pigment does not stick to anything. One example I thought maybe would be helpful is, say you have a wall and you want that wall to be a certain color, and you take some sand and you like the sandy color of the sand, and you say, I want the wall to be this color. Well, that sand is your pigment. So imagine throwing sand against a wall to put color on it. Well, that's not going to work, right? Sand's going to fall off. To use pigment, it has to be in a vehicle. And what a vehicle is simply, it's a combination of water plus an acrylic polymer. Now that's where acrylics get their name from, is because this acrylic polymer is what the pigment is suspended in. That plus water when it comes out of the tube. A polymer, in chemistry terms, is simply a long chain of molecules or individual parts that are either identical or very, very similar. And polymers are very, very strong. Think of them like a chain, like a metal chain. Like they're really hard to be broken. Once they reach that state, they're stable. That's what we want. Water and acrylic polymer is an emulsion. So these two things normally don't go together, which means they don't mix. What happens when acrylic paint dries? Well, when it dries, the water evaporates. So what are you left with? You're left with your pigment, and you're left with your acrylic polymer, which did not mix with the water, so it stayed while the water went away and evaporated. So this is what you're left with. This is how acrylic paints work. When they come out of the tube, it's acrylic polymer plus water plus your pigment. And as it dries, water evaporates, and you're left with pigment, acrylic polymer, which has now formed a really strong molecule. And acrylic paints are no longer soluble when they're dry. Going back to our sand example, you mix your sand with water and glue and then spread that on your walls. Please don't actually do this. Spread that on your walls, and then the water evaporates. What are you left with? You're left with your sand, your pigment, and your glue. That's stuck to your wall. That is not coming off. But before I go, I want to give you just a really basic run through of the properties of acrylic paint. Acrylic paints are water soluble when wet, permanent and water insoluble when dry. Acrylic paints are resistant to cracking when they're dry. Acrylics can be thinned with water. If you want a more watercolory look to them, they can be thinned with water. However, you have to control the amount of water that you mix into your acrylic paint, because if you mix too much, it can have an effect on the ability of acrylic paints to not crack and the ability of the acrylic paints to adhere to your surface.
Okay, now pause. This is a nail polish that my daughter had. She got it in about 2009. And what happened was, when she was using this thing, it was originally a brown color. This is a midi nail polish. And what she would do is she would take a marker or a crayon, you know, those water soluble ones by Crayola, dip it in water, and then say it was red. She'd color that on a nail, and then she'd open this and use it to paint back on some nail polish so that the color from Crayola would seal there. And then she'd stick this back in, close it out, forget about it. But what happened was, water from the watercolor paint on her nail was being transferred back into this bottle via the brush. And what that was doing was that it was adding water into the nail polish. Little by little, more and more went in. Now, this nail polish now, it is hardly ever used. And why is that? That's because if I was to take it and paint it on my nail, what would happen is, when it was dry, that cracking that Ashley was talking about, the littlest amount of pressure, it would come off in flakes. Somebody could just grab your hand to give you a handshake, and it would come off in like little flaky pieces. So, same thing that happens to acrylic paint happens to nail polish. Let's continue.
Permanent and water insoluble when dry. Acrylic paints are resistant to cracking when they're dry. Acrylics can be thinned with water. If you want a more watercolory look to them, they can be thinned with water. However, you have to control the amount of water that you mix into your acrylic paint, because if you mix too much, it can have an effect on the ability of acrylic paints to not crack and the ability of the acrylic paints to adhere to your surface. So, what do you do? Well, what you do is, instead of dumping a bunch of water into your acrylic paint to thin it, what you use is an acrylic medium. Now, I'm going to get all to mediums on my next tutorial, so that'll be next Tuesday.
Alright, now I'm going to go into a video of how modern nail polish works, and you're going to notice some similarities. So, I'll run the tape.
What we have today is not so different from its beginnings. The main ingredient in nail polish is nitrocellulose, also known as cellulose nitrate, a type of cotton that is flammable and is also an ingredient in gunpowder. Nitrocellulose comes in different viscosities depending on how thick you would want the nail polish to be. The cellulose is the part of the nail polish that will produce a hard film on the surface of the nail. Over the years, manufacturers have added synthetic resins and plasticizers to make the nail polish more resistant to soap and water and more flexible. The types of resins and plasticizers used today are castor oil, glycerol, fatty acids, amyl stearate, butyl stearate, and acetic acids. The materials added to give nail polish its color have to be put in a solvent that will evaporate so the color will harden.
Alright, now for a minute we're going to go back to acrylic paint, show you just like nail polish, they add glycerol to give it more liquid properties.
This is the quickest way possible to show you that the same things that thin nail polish will also thin acrylic paint. See right here, acrylic paint.
Joe, yes, thank you very much for taking up this invitation today, and I hope you're having a good day, because I certainly am. As you can see, I've already run a test, and I found 5 things, yes, 5 things that you can mix with acrylic paint that you may not know, yes. The first one I want to introduce you to is vegetable glycerin. There we are, vegetable glycerin. This product is a
Acetone, non-porous surfaces such as glass and metals. This is so strong it will not require much scrubbing, perfect for airbrush nozzle tips. See, takes off the acrylic paint as well.
Fatty acids, amyl stearate, butyl stearate, and acetic acids. The materials added to give nail polish its color have to be put in a solvent that will evaporate so the color will harden. The color nail polish comes in different pigments, and nail polish is a suspension in which the particles of color are held by the solvent, which is why you should shake nail polish before using it if it has been sitting around for a while. Smaller bottles. Nail polish goes on nails and then exudes a certain smell as the solvent evaporates. Once the wet solvent is evaporated, the hard nitrocellulose is left behind. The same solvent is used to make nail polish remover, which converts the nitrocellulose back into a liquid so it can be wiped off.
Created using Powtoon.
Now hello, welcome to the last part of this video, where I have actually went back and rewatched Ashley's video to refresh my memory on what acrylic paint is and does. So I'm going to show you something. Alright, so for the last part of your comment where you said, also, acrylic nail polish does not equal acrylic paint, but I'm fairly certain that there isn't a thing acrylic nail polish unless it's a polish specifically for acrylic nails. The 2 types of polish are regular, which dries in air, and then gel polish, which is cured under a UV bulb. That was wrong. That's actually the most error paragraph segment that you wrote, but anyway, we'll get into that. I'm going to show you examples of enamel nail polish. It exists. Now this here, it is by Clinique, and on it originally, before the writing rubbed off, I can still see it a little bit. here it is, a different nail enamel. I don't know if you can see that on the bottom, but it's there. This is enamel nail polish. Just to show you again that enamel nail polish exists, I borrowed this from my friend so I could show you. See there? Enamel. Now, what I got the Yak varnish for originally was to paint over these pieces. This is baked polymer clay. It's unpainted. And what they say is if you put enamel nail polish on these things, they will get sticky. That's been said before by another dude as well. They get sticky because what happens is the enamel digests the clay. So I like how your stomach works. Now also, blah blah blah, you mentioned two types of polish, regular which dries in air, and gel polish which is cured under a UV bulb. You're thinking like fake acrylic nails and that kind of stuff. Now, picture acrylic like gold, right? You know how with gold you can have a lump of gold, or you can grind that gold down and have gold powder, or you could even add that powder into some paint and have gold paint that you could paint a smiley face on your shirt with. Right. In the same way that gold can be the same thing but have different states, acrylic is a little bit like that. So, I don't know. I guess why they originally called it acrylic paint was because maybe some of the pigments were related to acrylic. And so that's why they're in there. If you look at the back of some nail polishes still, you see acrylic, blah, 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 blah. They're part of chemicals. So, yes. Also, I have not seen a UV bulb for, what, 15 years? The last time I saw one might have been in Argentina. I haven't really, well, maybe I'm not going into the right places. I don't really put fake stuff on my nails. You just have to take it off at the end of the day anyway. But on this remote island, you ain't gonna see a UV bulb. It's probably the reason I got Yak varnish was what was there. Not to bash the store, because when you're shipping things to islands, with every island, sometimes the price goes up because every single island wants to add what's called a tax. So you reach Trinidad charges you a tax. Your $2 item is now $4. You reach Guadeloupe charges you a tax. Your $4 item is now $6. You reach, say you're going to Marie-Galante. You reach Marie-Galante, and now your originally $2 item is now worth $8 because everybody added it on like a tax, and also it's closer to being expired. But that's what happens. So can you imagine an island off of Rhodes Island? See what I mean? It's like accessibility. I wrote this out, and when I was writing this out, I realized that you kind of put this like a group together, like just thinking. But yeah, not accessible. Anyway, so I hope that breaks down to you what acrylic paint is, what regular nail polish is, and how they are similar. Really, really similar. In fact, maybe I'm going to call this video how acrylic paint and non-enamel nail polish are identical twins. Good luck.